Hey, everybody, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Morgan. Today, my guest is Joseph Michelli. He is an author, an influencer, a speaker, a consultant. He has over 25 years of experience as a professional speaker. He has a track record of best-selling books, and he's studied and worked for and with some of the most customer-centric brands out there. He's worked with Mercedes and Starbucks and so many more. On the podcast, we're talking a lot about how to launch a customer experience program, who you need to be in front of, how you can get your C-level to pay attention, and how to even get started on this customer experience transformation road. Also, what's happening now in 2024? What's happening with customer experience and the broader economy, and what you should be doing as we think about things like measurement and so much more. Please enjoy Joseph Michelli. Joseph, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast. So nice to see you today. Are you in Florida today?
I am. I'm loving weather in Florida. And how about you? Are you in California?
Yeah, it's spring, so Florida weather is perfect right now. I am. It's actually so cold today outside of LA. Like I just was walking my dogs wearing this blouse and I felt like I need like a puffy coat. It's really cold. But so nice to see you. Your picture, I've like seen your picture so many times. I've seen your work so many times, but alas, we are here now, Joseph. So for my audience, I'm sure a lot of them do know you and read your work, but can you just talk a little bit about how you became interested in customer experience?
So, Blake, I'm an old guy, unlike you, who've been in this profession for a long time, but you're still young. I'm old. I started before this was called customer experience. Back in the days, we called it customer service almost exclusively. I was working for a healthcare system and literally invoked a template. Everyone in the healthcare system was supposed to say these things in this order. It was so terrible. And we just pushed it from top down. So I started doing customer service, trying to standardize customer service and making all the mistakes. I'd gone to graduate school, got a Ph.D. in organizational psychology, knew nothing, and worked in a few settings like the Pike Place Fish Market. And before you knew it, I was doing it as an organizational development specialist in healthcare.
Pike Place Fish, is that something related to Starbucks? And like, are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, I worked with Johnny Yokoyama, who's the owner of the Pike Place Fish Market, which is where they throw fish
I
in
remember.
Seattle.
Yes.
And it's a block and a half away from the original Starbucks store. So as Howard Schultz was influenced by the Pike Place Fish Market. And if you go to that first Starbucks store in the Pike Place Market area, they actually throw cups, which
Oh,
emulates the throwing
perfect.
of fish. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big Starbucks fan and customer. You wrote a book about them. Do you still think they're doing a great
Who?
job? Oh, you wrote two books.
I wrote two books about it. I don't, I'm so out of touch. I was connected to Howard Schultz and I was there in the early days. So I thought they did a great job at creating a meteoric experiential offering, the third place, right? And then I wrote another one when Howard had to reverse course when they were losing it in after 2008 in the recession. And I thought he did a great job of reclaiming the Starbucks experience, bringing it back to the coffee house and mobilizing the experience. Right now, I really just am out of touch. I mean, I get what I get from the media, and there's always concerns about employee experience and unionization. And there's also concerns, obviously about whether or not they're still in as much touch with the consumer as they used to be. I try not to judge because I know how hard all of this is.
So I was watching a speech that you gave, I believe, to Subway employees and watching some of your speaking. What are some of the main tenets that you bring to audience? Like what makes your message unique as a customer experience speaker and researcher and leader?
But yeah, I would hope that the avenue I've really claimed as a psychologist who does this is the importance of emotional value. I'm certainly not the person who understands the cutting edge technologies that are needed to deliver the world class customer experiences, but I know that all of them have to result in an outcome emotionally for the customer. Either that's reduced effort and relief, or it's some kind of an emotionally engaging phenomena. So I speak a lot on something I call the way we serve statement, which is this idea that you can have mission, vision, and values in an organization, but if you can't understand what that's going to feel like for the customer, you're just looking at yourself. And so
Yeah.
trying to understand what do we want every customer to feel every single time, no excuses, translated through your mission, vision, and values is really a lot of what I do, and try to make sure that shows up at high moments of truth, either through people, process, or technology.
And right now, are you doing a lot of consulting to help companies get through this?
I am, and it's all really time intensive. I have this fantasy someday I'll have a whole minion of other people who do the consulting, but I really love it enough that I'm in there all the time, and I'm trying to figure out how to set some better boundaries so I can just do more speaking and writing books about the experiences. But for now, I'm still in there fighting the
Yeah.
fight.
Joseph, so what are some of the challenges your clients are having right now? I mean, the world is sort of a crazy place, it feels. But what are they needing your help with when we think about customer experience and service?
I think if they don't have their true north defined, they need to really define it. Once they do have it defined, they have to identify the moments that matter most, right? So those signature moments where they can elevate the experience in memorable ways. And then they have to define how much people, how much technology are we going to use to get us there. And I think a lot of brands have overcorrected on the technology, and they had so many challenges with workforce. I think that many of them diverted to as much technology as possible and self-serve. And clearly the pandemic required us in lockdowns not to have human interaction. So a lot of that has been carried forward, but I think there's almost a need now to figure out how much can we bring people back into the equation at the right time and the right people with the right skill.
So something that I run into doing what I do, it's similar to what you do, is it's interesting when you think about customer experience, like who are you speaking to? Is it the chief customer officer? Are you mostly working with the folks that run customer service in the contact center?
Yeah, well, I tend to get in the consulting side. I tend to be in the C-suite, which is really the only place I like to be anymore. I've tried to change customer experiences at the director level, and unless you have top-end buy-in, it's really hard to get this stuff done. It's an enterprise-wide lift, and it's a never-ending journey. So, from a consulting perspective, I really push to be in the C-suite, and if I'm not there, I say you might need another consultant. When it comes to speaking, it's whatever the organization wants, right? I mean, sometimes it's customer service skills. It's how do you communicate with people effectively? How do you demonstrate empathy, social intelligence at the front line? And other times it's trying to figure out from a managerial perspective, what are your key performance indicators and how do you drive an organization to create customer experience where you get return visits and referrals?
So let's pretend, Joseph, that we are your clients and you are talking to us at the C level about the importance of customer experience. Like, what are some of the things you would address, and what are some of the standard ideas your clients suffer from that you would kind of question, like that they like assumptions?
Yeah, well, I think it's a great question because in 2024, it's really different than when I started this career. We really did have to sell customer experience. It's like an afterthought. Nowadays, everybody accepts that customer experience is a great differentiator. I mean, I think there's studies that say 90% of leaders do believe that. So I don't normally engage that conversation anymore. What I normally do is execution. And I really try to identify what's the gap between all the money and time you've thought about customer experience delivery and success. And a lot of times it really gets down to, are you reducing your advertising costs as a function of referrals?
Hmm.
What percentage of your customers coming in today are going to come in tomorrow, and how much are they going to spend tomorrow if you create an experience that causes them not to be lured away from you with a coupon? So if I couponed you tomorrow, Blake, and said, I'll give you whatever the services you like so much for 20% less, I'm a competitor. If you're unwilling to go there for that 20%, that's what we need to build into the experience. And we need to understand your customers so well that we are in their DNA at a level where they go, are you kidding? I don't care about your 20%. I'm not willing to risk my relationship with a brand that I love and trust to dally around over there disloyally with that other, competitor.
Yeah, and I think one of the hardest things about that, and I've read Fred Reichold's new book, I think Winning on Loyalty, where he talks about this earned growth rate, like how many of your customers came in through referrals. It's just the tracking of it all. And if you can't track it, some executives don't want to go there. Is that something you help them with, the tracking of, okay, this customer came in through referral?
Yeah, it's not perfect, but a lot of people don't even really try. It's amazing how often we don't ask customers, how did you find us? Like, just in general, businesses don't ask that question or don't follow it through other tracking mechanisms, backdoor on websites, right? Like, they're just not aware of where their customers are coming from. But at a brand, I'll give you an example. I work for Clayton Homes, which is a Berkshire Hathaway brand in the manufactured housing and the built housing environment. And they really weren't asking the question, how did you find us at all? And then they started doing it, and they were underwhelmed by the lack of referrals that were walking in the door. And they were spending pretty heavy to try to get the referrals that they were getting. So, and those were from third parties and, aggregators. So our goal was to say, let's just start asking the question, and let's be very clear. Once we find out if you said it was a referral, that we validate that that is a legitimate referral. So we do the work, right? And then we thank the referral source, give them an act of appreciation. We don't incentivize it in advance, because that's a whole different kind of referral. To me, that's not really earned referrals. My point is, I think you really do create a discipline around it, and they set a goal, which was 25% of all the new people who walk into their showrooms come from referrals, and they're at about 22 now. So they're not quite there, but they're a heck of a lot farther than what I can tell you their original number was.
So Joseph, I know like new construction and these industries, they are tough industries to be in. What were the things you said they had been putting quite a bit of money into referrals, getting referrals? What were the things they were doing, and what changed after you worked with them?
They were looking, they were obviously they were tracking people over a life cycle and identifying when they would likely have trigger moments that would interest people in that socioeconomic sector to want to buy a manufactured house. And so they were looking for life triggers, and they were aggregating data from people who could tell you who was in that life trigger zone and push marketing to off those triggers. So I think, it's not uncommon for us to try to figure out who's our target audience, where do they exist, when are they likely to be in a buying cycle. It's really different, though, if we actually say to our existing customers from the day they arrive that we're in the referral business, and I'm here to earn your referral. I'm not here to ask you for a 10 at the end so I can have some NPS number that I can tout on my website. I'm literally wanting you to be on my sales team. And for that to happen, I have to earn that. And I'm setting out to do that right now. So watch me and let me know if I'm not. All the way through the journey, not just at the end when, hey, we're coming to the end and I just sold you my Mercedes. Would you give me a 10 so my kids can eat? It's a whole different mindset, I think, and then tracking those referrals and incentivizing people on your team who really get lots of their clients to give you referrals.
So Joseph, do you veer your customers away from Net Promoter Score? What metrics do you veer them toward?
I like NPS. I also like customer effort scale, but I tend to go for metrics also I have pulse metrics for satisfaction along the journey in addition to those relational metrics. But I like to identify what do we want customers to feel and measure against those. So at a brand like Renewal by Andersen, we might have delight or cared about as dimensions that we want them to have. And we're going to ask on a 0 to 10 scale using NPS math, how likely are you how to what degree did you feel cared about? Not just cared for, but cared about. To what degree did you feel delighted as a result of your interactions? And when we did that at Mercedes and we asked about delight, we got zeros for a while. People were saying, it was almost as if I should be grateful for spending $140,000 to buy a vehicle from you. So we had a long way to go for people to say delight, 9. So, even though that's not empirically as valid, maybe as an NPS, it really tracks on, are we delivering the branded emotion that we think? And if we believe emotions drive purchase intent, then so be it.
I think one of the things, Joseph, that clients get tripped up on are metrics. They don't know what to measure. And it really takes that long-term view to measure some of these things that you're talking about. What are some of the things that you tell clients when they just want to look at the short term, the things that they've always measured, and you're saying, hey, we have to think more long-term. Like, how do you get them to that mindset?
Well, I tend not to argue with them about go ahead and continue to measure that if you want to, but it's not gotten you where you are, and you wouldn't have me here if it had. So now that I'm here, why don't we also start thinking about some of the things that are going to predict your long-term success? And so that's the dialogue. I tend to accept that most people don't want you to come in and kill all their darlings, right? Like that's just not what they want. But they need to be coaxed into their higher angels too, because some of this stuff that we do over and over again, seriously, some of the satisfaction metrics I've looked at over time have absolutely no predictive validity of anything. Not repeat business, nothing. All it basically says is you're competent to do what you do, and barring a catastrophe, we'll assume you can do it. And that's about it. But we're waiting for a better option to come along. So some of the metrics that people rely on are so failed in terms of their predictive validity that I try to get them to see what is it you want to have happen and how is this an early indicator of that. And most of the time it's the lack of the connection and predictive analytics that helps them see maybe we should start looking for another way to see if there's a canary in the coal mine.
So you mentioned Mercedes. I know you've written a book about them. I mean, did you spend time consulting for Mercedes?
Yeah, Lior Arusi, I imagine Lior and I have both worked for Mercedes over the years, mostly on things like developing how did we want customers to feel every single time. So Driven to Delight is the title of the book, and we identified delight as the goal of every interaction with every team member and every customer. And we changed the metrics there, so we definitely changed the way we measured satisfaction and engagement at Mercedes so that we could have leading indicators that predicted the JD Power scores,
Mhm.
which were bragging rights scores in that industry. And Mercedes was 33rd on the JD Power Customer Satisfaction Index on a brand that goes to market with best or nothing. Well, you're nothing then, right? Go tell that to the engineers at Daimler. They're not really happy to hear it. So it really was a matter of how do we get some metrics beforehand? We called it the customer experience scale that gave us better predictability on this lagging indicator called the JD Power survey, and really worked hard. We definitely asked, to what degree do we delight you as part of our metrics?
Yeah. I mean, I used to be a Mercedes customer, and I think one of the challenges for them and for all automobile or industries where you have third parties is the dealership aspect. Is you can't always control every aspect of how you sell and how you treat customers because sometimes somebody else is managing that and they might not be trained by the parent company, or maybe it's a franchise situation. Do you have any thoughts on what to do when you can't control the end-to-end experience?
Well, you want to influence it as much as you can. So here's what happened for us. So at the time, Steve Cannon was the CEO of Mercedes-Benz USA, and he literally had to go to the dealer body and say, look, you've got all of this fixed margin, and you've got a little bit of variable margin. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to take some of your fixed margin and make it contingent upon your customer experience scores. Now,
Mm-hmm.
nobody's going to say yes to that, except for the fact that in the old days, if you didn't earn out the variable margin, Mercedes kept it. So Steve said, I'll tell you what, we want to take some of your fixed margin, but we'll give you all of the variable margin back to those who earn it based on customer experience. Dealer body said, sure, we're going to actually, the people who do this well are going to get more, and the people who do it less well are going to get less, and it's a meritocracy. Well, then he had to go to Germany and sell that to Daimler and explain we're going to give up some of the margin we normally keep in order to get back some of the margin that was normally fixed. So the bottom line is, I think fundamentally, this is the kind of stuff you have to do. You have to negotiate because everybody wants to deliver a great customer experience, but if it doesn't make money for people,
Yeah.
that it's just talk. So anyway, that is how it was approached at Mercedes, and I think it was an influence game,
Mm-hmm.
but people had a chance to earn out more margin.
And what was the ending of the story? How's it going for them?
Well, they went from 22nd to number one in the time that Lior and I were consulting, and they bounce around one, two, or three now. So they're still top tier now compared to middle tier. I mean, literally, Blake, there were months where we were like, "Woohoo, we just beat Mazda." That's not what a premier automotive brand wants to aspire to do.
Well, I think what's also
Sorry,
challenging
Mazda.
is the salespeople control. I mean, if you think about buying a car at a dealership, um, the salesperson does very much shape your experience, and the salesperson is going to negotiate that how much the car costs. It's not like Tesla where you just go to the website. Like you can't negotiate. So that I think is challenging when a car dealership, that's often not a very pleasant experience. I've negotiated Mercedes by myself. I remember I think at one point I was pregnant or had a little baby at home. I was not in the mood for that. But I think that's part of the challenge is maybe a salesperson doesn't see themselves as a client experience expert.
Yeah, they want a sale, and their incentive is to close the sale and to make as much money on the sale as they can. But if you yoke again their compensation to the score they're going to get from you and how terribly you felt you were treated, and that mitigates their score, things change. And I hope that since the time that happened, that car sales in general aren't as sleazy as they used to be. Hopefully, but hopefully at Mercedes it's a better experience. And then we had other problems like how do you get a salesperson who's going to get their commission set check to make a warm handoff to the service department? Because the service department is where dealerships make their money. It's not on the sale of the original vehicle. It's creating this virtuous
Hmm.
cycle from sales to service and back to sales again. And so, how do you get that all to work? And to get it to work, fundamentally, you have to incentivize the salespeople to do the warm handoff. And so, literally, at dealerships, we've tried all kinds of things, not least of which is to say, unless Blake, after the sales arrangement, has an appointment to meet the service advisor, your incentive check's going to be held up. And it's just really getting leverage. I think, part of what we do, Blake, is, and you do it really well, is just help people see how the incentives work against the very things that they're trying to achieve. And they've been there for so long. How do we think with new eyes and ears and about the experiences that people want?
Seems like in every situation you've brought up, there's a CEO that is saying we have to change. They're the advocate. They're going to all the stakeholders saying we have to change, we have to change. And I don't think that's a broadly accepted thing now that C-level has to make the change. I actually have a book coming out on this topic about leadership. What do you think? I'll point you the question, what is the customer-centric leader? What do they do differently than other leaders?
Yeah, well, I think they understand that service serves us, that creating value for others is the only way we have value created in the world. If we seek value for ourselves, people just turn off. We have a world where everybody's kind of pointing to themselves, look at me, look how incredible I am. And I think it's like a chamber of commerce where everybody's handing out cards and nobody's actually taking them. So customer centric leaders, I think, understand that the success of their organizations, it's really Drucker, right? Like Drucker who said that we're not in business to create we're not in business to create a profit. We're in business to create a customer. Our job is to create customers, to create environments where customers will thrive and the profits will follow. That's my take, but I think you're right completely and I can't wait to read your book. So that's the most important message. I do love it when the C-suite is on board, and those are the organizations that I want to spend my career working with, mainly because we get a lot done. The other organizations, you can still be successful as a mid-level leader who's customer centric. You just have to fight a lot more headwinds than you would if the C-suite was paving the way.
Do you think today companies are more customer centric or less customer centric than they were prior or during COVID?
This is so hard. I mean, obviously that's a trick question. If you look at the CSATs, it looks like we're going in the wrong direction. The customer satisfaction is down. Part of it is customer expectations are up. So we have higher expectations, and I don't think people are really executing as well as they were prior to COVID. Personally, COVID, I think, forced us to have to interact on through technology platforms, and I think sometimes we've become over reliant on that. Self-serve is awesome. I love self-service, but when I want a person who can really make a human connection with me and who knows something. And I fear that we're going to go farther and farther down this rabbit hole with AI unless we can help people use these tools to create better human experiences. So, or else we're just going to have all technology experiences and people interacting with technologies in fairly impersonal ways, which will be very efficient and streamlined, but maybe not loyalty building.
Would you recommend, Joseph, that your clients or people watching this podcast right now double down on customer experience, even if their sales are down because of the inflation and everything?
Yeah, I mean, look, you can't do it all with headcount, right? But you have to maximize your ability to understand what your customers want so you can target your key customers with your offerings. If anything, that's what we learned from all of this. Know who your customers are, know what they want before they even know what they want, provide it to them as efficiently as possible, and do it with an emotionally enveloping experience. If we do all of that, we win. And the brands that spend less money understanding their customers, thin out their analytics teams, thin out their customer experience design teams, are the ones who are really, I think, are struggling right now and will continue to struggle in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a really good note to wrap on. I mean, things are uncertain out there, but it seems like if you want to keep your customers, treat them better, then they'll tell their friends, which is really amazing when you get that.
That's
Like,
Walt Disney. Like that's Walt Disney. That's his quote almost. Yeah.
yeah, I was just at Disneyland like 10 days ago, so that Disney is fresh on my mind. So, and you're in Florida,
Yeah.
so you've
I
got
am
Disney
Disney
good too.
World. Yeah, the
Disney
other
World.
Disney. Yeah. Yeah.
Now my daughter's told me Disneyland is not enough. She needs to see Disney World. She must see this, so I have to take her there at some
She
point.
must, Mom. She must.
Yes. Well,
Yeah. If you're Mom of the Year is contingent upon it. I'm
right.
telling you.
I know. It's
Yeah.
a high pressure situation. So let's get to know you a little bit, Joseph. Let's have some fun with rapid fire. Are you game to have some quick questions?
I'm ready.
All right, Joseph, first question. What is the most important part of your morning routine?
Coffee.
You're the second person to say that recently, and I fully agree. Well,
Yeah.
what do you do to relax at the end of a hectic day?
Play my guitar.
Cool. What show are you currently streaming right now?
Streaming. Oh my gosh. Well, we just finished Yellowstone, getting caught up, so I'll say Yellowstone.
So good. Okay. If you could have lunch with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
Well, this is terrible. I would love to have lunch with Van Morrison, but I don't think he's a very nice person from what I can tell. So I think I'm more attracted to his music. So I'll say someone much more noble, like Jesus.
Okay. What is one mental health strategy for managing hard days?
Oh, I think just sitting quietly and thinking about the positives.
Cool. Love it. If you could summarize your life in one quick motto, or your outlook on life, what would that motto be?
Yeah, it's somewhere between service serves us, which I think I may have uttered as part of my corporate concept. And I think other than that, it's probably something that, that he was half the dad his dad was.
Who was half the dad whose dad was?
I would be half the dad my dad was.
Oh, your
That would
dad.
be my motto. Yeah,
Oh,
my motto would be Joseph is half the dad his dad was.
okay. All right. I like that. All right. Well, this has been really fun and interesting. There's so many of your books that I still want to read and need to read. I feel like they've never been more relevant than they are right now. If people want to learn more about you, read about your books, or hire you, what's the best way to do that?
Oh, I'm mercilessly everywhere on the internet as Joseph Michelli. You already said you see me all the time. Yeah,
I do.
just if you have my name, you have everything, Instagram, LinkedIn, you have everything. So I look forward to talking with folks who come by my way.
All right. Well, everybody, you've been tuning into the Modern Customer Podcast. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Until next time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on social media, including Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and more.